Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our little training session this evening. My name is Ben Marchant. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm the town manager, and I've been asked by our town council and town council president, Ann Dixon, to prepare this training for you to answer any questions you may have this evening. And President Dixon has a few words.
Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see so many of you here. Last evening, when I asked our town manager how many people had signed up, we really weren't quite sure. So we're excited to see so many of you here. The program will be recorded so that you can go back and tell the other members of your boards and commissions that it was a great training, and please do look at it. And I'm so happy to see so many of you here because some of you I know are new to boards and commissions, but some of you have been on boards and commissions for a very long time. And you're shaking your head yes. And as I have been, I've been serving in Coventry about 12 years now on various activities, school committee and town council and land trust and charter review, et cetera. And I find it very, very fulfilling and challenging to be with a group of like-minded people who want to do things to improve the community. So I always found it very, very rewarding to be on a board or a commission. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I hope that you're finding your experiences serving the community as rewarding as it has always been for me too. We're here because one of our council members suggested it would be a good idea to have some training. We have never had training for boards and commissions. And I know when I've been on a board of commissions, sometimes I received a little piece of paper and it said, put your name here and let us know how to contact you. Other times I received a little booklet, but never really any kind of orientation. What is my role? What was my role? How do I fit in with this group? What is open meeting law? What is that all about? And why do I have to fill out these ethics forms? I mean, I always consider myself an ethical person, and why every year do I have to do things like this? So I hope that you'll get some of your questions answered this evening, and I hope that you'll enjoy the training and that you will tell others to come back. So please enjoy yourself. You've met our town manager. He's only been with us a few months. He's been very responsive to all kinds of requests that the town council has made of him. This is just one of many things that he has put in his backpack to make sure that it got done. And it was very quick turnaround. So I like to thank him for all the work that he has done. I haven't heard the presentation yet, but I'm just assuming it's going to be fantastic. So I'd like to welcome our town manager. Thank you.
Thank you. So with those expectations set plenty high, prepare. Well, I hope I don't disappoint you too much.
I can't stay, so I won't know.
That's right. But it is recorded. This is a public meeting. I want to thank all of you for volunteering and on the boards and commissions that you're serving on. It's incredibly beneficial and helpful to the whole operation of government when we can work together with the members of our community to bring about the visions and hopes and dreams of the community. We have a really great staff here, and they work really hard, but they can't do it without you. They can't do it without the council who sets that vision of what kind of community you want to have. And it has really been a very positive experience for me coming here, getting to know so many people that care very passionately about this community. Coventry has a long history. It's had its bumps in the roads. It has its struggles, and we're going to get through it. The best way is together. And this orientation is intended to help you understand kind of the dynamics of what it means to serve in local government. What are some of the concerns that you might encounter that would be different from a private nonprofit 501c3 type organization, because government is different. So an overview of what I hope to cover in this time. We'll do introductions. I want to talk about why we serve, how we serve, and how government is different. And we'll cover the particulars of the Open Meetings Act and ethics. So with that, if we could just go around the room and have everyone say their name and what board or commission you're serving on, that would help me understand better who's in the room, and we'll go from there. So I do want to recognize a few staff members here this evening. My assistant, Stephanie In, she assists with Sewer Subcommittee and Economic Development Commission. Any others?
Sewer Assessment Board of Review.
And Sewer Assessment Board of Review. We have Cody Houghton here helping with the technical aspects of this evening, and Robert Robillard with the Director of Health and Human Services. So I'll start on front row.
Dennis Green, Common Land Trust. Jack Donovan, Touch the River Authority, Common Land Trust.
Thank you.
Ron Flynn, Chairman of the Planning Board, around for 15 years.
Josh Clements, Common Land Trust.
Mike Stavoli, and Bill Corey. My second year.
Ernie Rusak on the Senior Citizen Board.
Joe Tillinghast on the Senior Citizen Board, and I love it.
Great.
Judy Taylor, Senior Citizens Board.
Good evening, everyone. Tim Pimentel, I'm on the Economic Development Committee.
Florence Martinelli on the Senior Citizen Board.
Hi, Steve Glover, Human Services.
Right.
David Short, Secretary of the Planning Board.
Carl Manson Planning Commission, as well as Central Coventry Fire District.
Is Sally's to the South Committee?
Chris Anderson, Tax Assessment.
Bill Rogers for Library Trustees.
Lauren Martin's Library Trustee. Alan Beckendorf, Trustee. Pat Mary, Library Trustee. Maureen Buffy, Historic Preservation Commission. Dale Tatangelo, Senior Center, Human Services.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We have a very good representation of many of the boards and commissions. So why do you serve? What inspired you or possessed you or drove you crazy enough to volunteer on any of these boards and commissions? Some of you are evidently having a good time.
We always have a good time. What gave it away?
The reason why I do this because I love working with the seniors. And if I can put a smile on any one of their faces, that makes me feel pretty damn good. And that's what I'm here for. I love the crew I work with. I love the director, Robillard. And that's why I'll go overboard for this committee right here. And just to go around, talk to people, just don't sit there. We laugh, we joke, we have a good time. And sometimes all the people are telling me, the 80 and 90, oh, Steve, get the heck out of here. I love that. And guess what? I'm coming back next Wednesday too for that kind of abuse. I love it.
Wonderful.
So,
It is wonderful having.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had taken care of my husband for 8 years. He had Alzheimer's, and I would not put him in a nursing home. I stuck with him. And when he passed away, I waited a year. I didn't know what to do with myself. I said, I got to do something. So I walked into the senior center, knew no one, right? And I've been there ever since. This is 5 years. Can't get rid of him. I love it. I work with Steve. We dance around. We kick with the seniors. And I love them. And you know something? Most of them love me too. It's great. Right there?
oh, no.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's
Well, if every board and commission could be that happy, we'd all be very happy. I know some of your boards and commissions have much more controversial and difficult issues to deal with. Sometimes you have people that really don't like what you're doing. That's been my experience in public service. Just a little bit about me. I started my career as an intern in the City of San Diego Mayor's Office of Protocol. And that was my last quarter semester in college, and I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do. And that internship turned into a job at the mayor's front desk. I took calls for everyone in the city on every issue. 1.2 million people was all they had in San Diego. I think that's the same population as the entire state of Rhode Island. But it really sparked in me an appreciation for local government, and that this is where we make a difference in people's lives every single day. And that led me to get a master's degree in public administration at Northern Illinois University in Illinois. My family was very patient and understanding as they followed me around the country. I've been in 7 different states. I've been a manager in 5. This is my 5th town, and it's been a wonderful experience. And I keep coming back because even though I might be a glutton for punishment, you might need to check my credentials and see if I still have all my marbles. It's still, I'll fit in. Wonderful. It's still about making that difference and solving problems. And there certainly are plenty of problems to solve. This world isn't short on any, and they keep finding more every day. So how do we serve? Well, I've listed out all of the boards and commissions and committees that we have listed in the town documents. If I'm missing any, I'm sure you'll catch it. Some of them are inactive, like the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, but we've got the Board of Canvassers, the Charter Review, Conservation Commission, Coventry Housing Authority, Historic Preservation Commission, the Land Trust, the Economic Development Commission, Friends of Human Services, the Kent County Water Authority, the Library Board of Trustees, and there we go, the Patuxent River Authority, Personnel Board, which is inactive, Planning Board, Police Pension Board, Redevelopment Agency, Sewer Assessment Board of Review, Sewer Subcommittee, Tax Assessment Board of Review, a Traffic Calming Committee. Not active, but I certainly get plenty of calls about that. Tree Warden and Zoning Board of Review. So there are lots of opportunities to serve in this town. And certainly if you know people that need some way to give back or have an interest in any of these issues, we have plenty of openings right now. So government is different. I want to talk about that because some common perceptions of government are not always the most flattering, right? Why isn't government run more like a business? Why isn't it more efficient? There's a lot of good reasons for that. Businesses can afford to go bankrupt and disappear. Cities and towns can't. We've got people to serve. We've got public resources to protect and maintain. And because we take public funds to provide those services, we have an obligation to maintain the public trust and to follow the rule of law, to uphold the laws, to provide for public health and safety, and follow legal mandates. And a big difference between business and government is the best form of our system is political. We have people that interact with other people to talk about the policies and the directions that we want to go. And all of you are part of that political process because you're serving on boards and commissions that ostensibly are there to provide advice and suggestions to the governing body of the town council. The 5 of them, while they might work in a vacuum, they can work in a vacuum, and they have all the authority to operate as individuals. they can be much more effective in performing their function with input from you and the other residents of the community. So, I learned in college what politics really meant. It comes from the Greek roots, poly, meaning many, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. But I've chosen to make my life working with them because I see that's where we really make a difference. And people that really care often get a bad rap. And government is an easy scapegoat for everything that's wrong. And I like to remind people when I hear them complaining about that we live in a democratic republic, that it's government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if the people aren't showing up to government, they need to look at themselves in the mirror and ask why it's wrong if they're not involved. So you have showed up. You are here. History is determined and made by the people who show up, and I think that's to be applauded. So I want to get into the Open Meetings Act. Under Rhode Island general law, it is essential that public business be performed in an open and public manner, and that citizens be advised of and aware of the performance of public officials and the deliberations and decisions that go into the making of public policy. We're doing the people's business, and the people's business shouldn't be done behind closed doors in secret. We're talking about policies that affect them, services that they will or will not receive, and they are entitled to know what's going on and to participate. And so the Open Meetings Act here in Rhode Island is quite a bit different than other states I have served in. I've served in Pennsylvania, Oregon, Idaho, Missouri, Illinois, and California, and here the bar is a bit higher than other places, and you have to go to some extra lengths that you have to be very specific on how you announce your meetings and talk about what you're going to do. It's more transparent, but that transparency can also hinder some of the conveniences of just getting things done. And I'll get into that in a minute. The act applies when a quorum of a public body has a meeting. So let's start with public body. What is a public body? Well, a public body is a department, agency, commission, committee, board, council, bureau, or authority, or any subdivision thereof of state or municipal government. Therefore, every board and commission is a public body. It doesn't have all the same requirements that the town council has as a governing board, but that's what makes you fall under these rules and regulations of the Open Meeting Act, because you are deliberating about public business, and the public has a right to know about it, know when your meetings are, and participate if they'd like. Many times they don't, but the welcome mat is always there. So every meeting of all public bodies shall be open to the public unless closed, pursuant to Rhode Island general law. I want to touch on a meeting is a meeting. A quorum is a majority of the members of the board. So if you have a board of 5, the quorum is 3. If you have a board of 7, it's 4. 9 is 5, et cetera. The majority can establish the quorum to have a meeting. I'm not sure if you start with the minimum quorum of, let's say, 5, and someone has to leave. Most places I've been, you can continue and finish the meeting. You started with a quorum, you don't have to end with a quorum, but I don't know if that's true here, so we can check on that if that ever becomes a question. But really, it allows you to get work done. The executive session is the only time that you can have a closed meeting, not open and privy to the public. And there are very specific reasons you can have an executive session, most of which will not apply to you, and hopefully not, since it would involve litigation or potential litigation, personnel evaluation, collective bargaining. I don't believe any of the boards or commissions have staff. I take that back. Board of Canvassers does have a clerk. So there are certain times and circumstances, if you were in, I believe the land trust is regularly talking about acquiring land for public purposes. And so there are lots of circumstances where it's appropriate to have a meeting in executive session because the content of that meeting could jeopardize the public interest. You don't want to throw away your lawsuit. You don't want to throw away a great opportunity to negotiate a land deal because it was disclosed prematurely and someone else took advantage of it. So in order to have a meeting, you need to give notice. And there are two ways of giving notice. Last night, the town council just passed their annual notice for all the meetings they plan to have in 2022. And that is a general announcement that just sets all the dates and places where they expect to have the meetings. You can also have a supplemental notice, which has to be advertised and noticed at a minimum of 48 hours prior to the meeting. And you would post and that excludes weekends and state holidays. So if you're going to meet on a Monday, you have to post by Thursday to have 2 full days of advance notice on work days. Noticing requirements, you have to advertise the dates, times, and locations of the regularly scheduled meetings, and that information needs to be available to the public upon request. For supplemental, you also have to include a statement specifying the business to be discussed. Or an agenda with detailed descriptions. I was talking with a solicitor just before the meeting and asked, you really just can't make a motion from the floor, can you? And he's like, not in Rhode Island. You have to put it on the agenda as a decision you plan to make in advance so that everyone has a chance to know about it and potentially comment on it. So the posting requirements are pretty straightforward. You can display the agenda at a public at the principal office of the public body and one other prominent location within the governmental unit and on the Secretary of State's website, and that's done electronically. We hopefully none of you have any issues with that, and you have good town staff here to help get all that posted and keep you on the straight and narrow. Open Meetings Act allow for public comment, and the public body may respond to public comments initiated by a member of the public during a properly noticed open forum. I think there's sometimes some confusion about that, whether you can discuss what a member of the public brings up because it's not on your agenda, but you are able to respond. But I would stop at the response and say, hey, thank you for bringing that up. We'll deliberate on it and set that on an agenda for a future meeting. It would be potentially a violation of the law to begin deliberating on something that someone brought up. So you can't finagle new business that is not noticed in a timely manner just by having a friend come up and bring it up under public comment. But the public is allowed to comment and you're allowed to respond. Every meeting should have minutes, and the minutes at a minimum would reflect the date, time, and place of the meeting, the members who are present or absent, and a record by, and that would be the members of the governing board. You don't have to track the records of everyone who attends, but just the public body. You would have a record by individual member of any votes taken and any other relevant information that a member of the public body requests. So you don't have to take verbatim transcriptions of every word that is said. I found that that's very tedious and creates more arguments usually because you miss a lot in the tone and inflection, and it's on paper it looks different than what it sounded like at the time. And I believe that brevity is a virtue, and just stick to the facts, what the votes were that were taken, and just the general topic of conversation. All open meetings must be accessible to persons with disabilities. We are subject to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and any citizen or entity of the state who is aggrieved as a result of violations of this chapter may file a complaint with the Attorney General. So there's a level of accountability that we are held to. Nothing requires anybody to hold an open forum session to entertain or respond to any topic, nor does it prohibit any public body from limiting comment on any topic. That kind of gets into the situation where meetings can get out of hand. Maybe members of the public want to push an agenda or a conversation or something. And the privilege it is to sit on a board or a commission is to determine the business that you're going to discuss. And you can set your own limits, whatever you can agree to as a body, or at least is what the majority decides. I believe that was my last slide on, a couple more slides on open meetings. There are penalties under state law. Injunctive relief can declare actions null and void taken by the body. In most of your cases, you're advisory in nature, so there aren't any permanent actions to undo. And it probably wouldn't rise to this level of concern. It would probably just be a word of caution and encouragement to do a better job with whatever the oversight was. But for elected officials, it's pretty serious, and there can be civil fines up to $5,000 for a willful and knowing violation. And they can add the cost of attorney's fees. The remedies are pretty simple, though. You can reconvene a properly noticed meeting to retake a vote. You can file an action with the Superior Court or a complaint with the Attorney General to say, here's our evidence that we did in fact properly post the agenda and that no unlawful actions were taken. Any questions about open meetings? Please.
In your agenda, do you have to have a section that says public comment to allow public comment? Or is it just if someone's there and they say something, you can notice it?
I don't think you have to have it. I don't think you have to have it listed on the agenda, but you always have to give them a chance.
Okay.
And to the extent that we've had hybrid meetings and people attending on Zoom, we never know who wants to say anything or not. And so it's best to have it on the agenda and give them that chance. That what you don't want to have is anyone accusing you that you didn't, and you can say, well, it was right there on the agenda and no one responded. So. All right, moving right along. I certainly like to keep meetings short. The shorter, the better, and it takes a damn good meeting to beat no meeting. So ethics. Rhode Island Constitution, Article 3, Section 7 states that the people of the state of Rhode Island believe that public officials and employees must adhere to the highest standards of ethical conduct, respect the public trust and the rights of all persons, be open, accountable, and responsive, avoid the appearance of impropriety, and not use their position for private gain or advantage. So there's some slides on the State Ethics Commission's website, which I just frankly and shamelessly plagiarized. But I didn't like their presentation because it was very philosophical, and I want to know, just give me the essence. So I boiled it down to some of the points. And with ethics, it's a little tricky because it's a question of values and opinions that many people may feel very differently about the same issue. And so to the extent that there's a lot of gray in between the black and white letters of the law that's right and wrong, it's really a guidance that you want to avoid the appearance of impropriety and you want to do right, that you really are here to serve others and not yourself. And so that's really what it's focused on. So a conflict of interest is when a person's public duties may impact or involve their private life. And having a conflict of interest isn't against the law. It's not even not allowed. It's acknowledge that there are times you're an owner and an investor in your own community. You own a house here. And so therefore the policies that you recommend may ultimately benefit you. And that's part of the political process. But if you're in a position to make a decision that will exclusively benefit you, that's a big problem, because you're there to represent the public's interest, not your particular interests. And so whether it's someone in a volunteer capacity like yourselves or someone who's actually a paid employee of the town, you can see how quickly it becomes ugly when someone's doing things that will just serve their own interests at the taxpayer's expense or on town time or with town resources or whatever that may be. So so when it is not necessarily unethical that, yes, I own a home in town, yes, I work here, yes, the tax increase will affect me or this tax break will affect me. If it's generally applied to everybody, it can be identified and addressed. Most particularly for the town council when they actually cast votes that may affect their business interests or family interests or whatever. When there is a direct conflict, it's best to take precautions against that. And we'll get into that in a moment with the recusals. But first, the precautions. Be prepared for your meetings. Review the meeting agendas and items in advance to become familiar with what you're going to be discussing, and just take a moment to consider, are there any ethical problems that are coming up? This is going to come up more often in some volunteer capacities than others. I think the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Sewer Assessment Hearing Board, you might come across more instances of conflicts there. And sometimes I find it's not a conflict, it's a convergence, it's a win-win. But anything that could potentially, put someone out of sorts, it's best to anticipate it and acknowledge it. And if you do have a question, get advice. There are a lot of people that love to give free advice. And beyond them, it's not a bad idea to avail yourself of the town solicitor if you have one staffing your particular board or commission, or ask legal counsel of your own, or you can always call the State Ethics Commission. They're very happy to give advice. I don't think they get called often enough. At least they think so. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the news stories that we sometimes have. So the easiest way to get yourself out of a questionable ethical predicament or conflict of interest is to recuse yourself. And that's simply noting that I have a particular interest. It happens fairly often with the town solicitor because he's been around a long time and has had a lot of clients and relationships with a lot of people. So, one of the issues that he regularly recuses himself on is anything having to do with wind turbines. And I'm sorry if that's near and dear to your heart, but it's an issue that he has relationships with other clients. So he has to say, I cannot advise the town on this matter. I have a conflict of interest. And then the town council seeks other legal counsel to provide advice in that area to avoid that conflict. So just noting that you have a potential conflict at the beginning of the agenda, or as soon as the agenda item comes up, you can give a brief explanation. Well, I went into this joint venture with my nephew. He has a landscaping business, and this item is before the board for the landscaping business. So I'm not going to take part in the discussion, and I'm not going to vote on it. Those are the two critical matters. Do not take part in the discussion, don't vote. In some cases it says, well, if you're on a board or commission like these, you can just step off of the dais, away from the table and whatever. If it's an executive session or something more serious and more potentially controversial, best to just leave the room and not be in the meeting at all, so that you don't want to get accused of anything that was innocent. So if you do have to recuse yourself, I think this is more for elected officials and paid employees where you would have to fill out an ethics commission recusal form and file it with the ethics commission and the town clerk to be on record as having recused yourself, so that if it does become an issue or someone tries to make it an issue, you're covered. Gifts is another hot topic. You may not accept anything of value based on the understanding that the gift will influence your judgment or official action. I don't know about you, but I know plenty of people that see a lot of loopholes in that. But this prohibition includes anything of value given to your family or your business associates. Really, you want to stay clean. If you're serving the public, you're going to serve in public office, you don't want to even raise the issue that you're for sale or palms get greased. And you've heard a lot more history about that around here than I will ever know. But it's not unusual here or any other part of the country. There are people that have motives that are highly motivated that will do anything they can to get the contract, the job, the position, whatever. And so you just want to be very mindful of that. When I was first starting as a community relations associate for the mayor, I would go to these town meetings and I was so paranoid because if I went over the $75, $50 gift limit from any one source in a year, I was really worried that someone was out to get me, and they'd take me to lunch 4 times and boom, they'd report me and haul me off somewhere. But most of the time it's not an issue and no one's paying that close attention. I was just paranoid and young, but and some places, other states are way more liberal and less concerned about it. But here it's pretty tight. You can't accept more than an aggregate of $25 from an interested party per year. And I hinted at the beginning that sometimes these rules can really kind of gum up the works of what could otherwise be a very efficient public process. The Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns can no longer have their banquets for the state legislators and let them know what's going on because they can't accept the meal. You can't do a hosted meal for less than $50 a ticket. And so now all the representatives from cities and towns can't get the FaceTime with all of the legislators in one place and talk about the issues that are important to the entire state because of things like this. Now, we all know, we've all been in some organization or maybe elementary school where one bad apple spoils the day for the whole class. And, I think that's happened around here too. So it's more something to be mindful of. I know on your boards and commissions, you're not going to tally up the number of cookies someone brought in for you or flowers or the kindnesses, because I don't think you're really there to get influenced into official action. But nevertheless, we have these ethics laws to protect you and the community from inappropriate conduct. If you participate in making decisions, you may not accept cash or forgiveness of debt from interested persons, but may accept things of value from interested persons having a value up to and including $25 per instance and up to $75 per year from each interested person. And an interested person is someone that's going to have business that comes before your body. It does not preclude you from exchanging birthday gifts with family and friends. It does not apply to situations that are completely separate and apart from your official duties. But I know some people that they would go to conferences and they would put in their raffle, and if they won the iPad, they would turn it back and say, "No, I can't accept that." Well, then why'd you put your business card in? I don't get it. But that goes back to, there are different people with different sentiments about what it constitutes ethical and appropriate conduct. Some people are more conservative, some are more liberal, and it's not my place to make the judgment. I'm not on the ethics commission and I don't hold a judgment seat, but I do want to provide the best advice and counsel I can to help everyone get through this together so that we can make it a better community for everyone. So that interested person specifically is a person, business, or representative that has a direct financial interest in a decision that you participate in making. So that narrows it down a lot, so you don't have to worry so much. The appearance of impropriety, I was sitting on a police hiring board panel, and they were testing the new recruits and seeing what kind of sense they had for police work. And they said, well, one of the questions was, you witness a supervisor and another officer of opposite sexes going into a motel and spending quite a bit of time there and later leaving. What do you do? And the question is very deliberately ambiguous. They could be investigating a crime scene. They could be checking things out. They could doing a search, whatever. But kind of people automatically think they're doing something inappropriate on the job in uniform or whatever. And so whether it's legitimate or not, it does help to be conscious that other people are watching and jumping to conclusions. I call government living in the fishbowl. Everyone's looking at you from all angles all the time. And so it's very important that you uphold the values of public service and a very professional conduct. So you don't want to convey the impression that you're acting in an official capacity when you're not, or that you are acting in or when you're acting in an official capacity on an issue that appears to benefit yourself individually. So it can go both ways. You can pretend to be official, you can pretend not to be, and you could be making mistakes either direction. So just be aware. Ex parte contact is something that most often comes up with a development or some issue before a planning commission or zoning hearing board, where the developer is very conscientious or eager to get their application approved, and they will try to divide and conquer and take individual members of the planning commission out on special tours and special intelligence outings, and there might be some perks associated with it. But the problem with that is you can't be assured that everyone on the panel is being invited, getting access to the same information in the same way. That's why you have a public meeting, so that it all gets presented publicly on the same basis at the same time, so that no individual's opinions are inappropriately swayed. So if you have something that's on the agenda, it's best just to wait to discuss it at the meeting. It's perfectly fine to do your own research and due diligence, but if there have been times, I know that the town council was very interested in learning more about solar installations on landfills, which we're currently entertaining right now for the landfill on Arnold Road. And they made arrangements after the meeting to go tour the facility in Cranston. So it's okay to do it after the meeting, but before the meeting, you want to make sure that everyone's getting the same information and is able to make the same decision, and that there's no undue influence. Questions? Wow, I did good. I hope. There are a lot more issues than these, but these are the highlights that most often come up and can stymie and make life miserable for anyone serving in a volunteer capacity. You're giving of your time and your resources, and you're already giving a lot. And to have someone criticize you, disagree with the decision you make, can be very demoralizing. And worst of all, it can be very harmful if, one, you're not following the rules and you get caught, or if you are following the rules, but people impugn your integrity and say that you're not. And that can be a very hard thing to go through. But what I can say is that you're here for the town, and the town's here for you. We want to make sure you have every resource available to answer any questions or concerns that you have, and so that we can help you have a successful experience helping the town become more successful. So that's my personal, unethical, biased, self-indulgent kind of interest. If you can help the town be successful, that helps me be successful, and I'm just working for myself. But thank you so much for your time this evening. I promised I'd keep it short. Any other last chance? Okay, couple, please.
No. Does the police department have the juvenile board?
Yes, and I have that on a list, but I didn't get it on the slide.
I'm interested in something like that.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
We do.
good.
Thank you.
Can you serve simultaneously on more than one commission?
I believe you can on the board, at the board and committee level, but you cannot hold office on the town council and a position. Well, you can, because they're on the sewer subcommittee. You can. I think there are certain positions that you cannot hold dual office in. I know you can't hold office on the town council and an employee position in the town at the same time. So there are some positions that are mutually exclusive.
Is that presentation going to be on the town website?
Yes, sir.
Is there any guidance like on how we should be communicating? I know this is like a nice cheat sheet here, tips, but like, is there like a frequency with which we should be communicating with the town council, or just something comes up?
That's a really good question that we only just started thinking about. We have a very new town council, as I'm sure you're aware. 4 out of 5 have been on for less than a year. And even the 5th one has only been on for 2.5 years. So it's a very young council, and they are taking a holistic approach to look at everything. And one of the things I found is I was going through the list of all the boards and commissions there. I asked the town clerk and the HR director to pull some information together for me to say, what is it that every one of these boards and commissions is tasked to do? Do you know what your mission and purpose is? Do you know what the town council expects of you and what you expect of yourselves to perform for the community? Because what's in the charter and what's in the, in the documentation is pretty slim for most of you guys. Some of them are way more established in tradition, routine, and process. And so that's pretty clear for the Planning Commission, exactly what you're supposed to do. But for the Conservation Commission, well, what is that? And how is that not just completely redundant to what the Planning Commission is already doing? So a couple of the town council members are going to form a subcommittee to look at that and come up with kind of mission, vision, direction for all of the boards and commissions so that we're more on point. As far as communication, that's another great thought. And I didn't cover that in my slides, which is an omission on my part that I should have remembered, is that because you have to have a meeting be in public, you cannot have a quorum have conversations outside of the meeting, because that constitutes a public meeting that was not advertised, and yet you may have had deliberations. Kind of on the more humorous side of things, I served in a very small town of less than 4,000 people. Everyone knew each other, knew what you had for breakfast yesterday and the day before. And when they would go to the diner, guess who you see? There's your quorum, all council. And so it wasn't me, it was my predecessor who would walk up to them and say, "You've got to adjourn now, you're in violation." Of course, as a joke, because there's nothing that prohibits you from public assembly and going to dinner and whatever. But at least again, if you're aware of your situation and what the appearance might look like if you happen to cluster together around the coat rack and start talking, what that might look like to outsiders. No violation if you're discussing your puppy and your granddaughter's birthday and whatever, because that's not a matter of public interest. But potentially there are people, it's unfortunate to say, that like to play the gotcha game and make life harder for all of us. But to the extent that some communication is necessary, I've told that the town council that their best avenue for facilitating some process of thought in between meetings is to all send it through the town manager. I can take their input, I can synthesize it, I can push it back out so everyone can be aware of the same information so that they're better prepared to make good use of this very limited public time they have twice a month to deliberate on very important issues. And so in your cases, you can meet one-on-one with a couple of people, but you can't meet one-on-one until everyone has had the conversation. That's a serial meeting. That's a violation. But if two of you meet and have a conversation, and you're okay. But if you really want to ask for information and pull it together, that's where your staff liaisons, like Stephanie or Robert or I, can help you facilitate that. Anything else?
Is it, I don't know if it's a recommendation, I guess as the town manager, is it helpful as a member of these various boards that we go to the town council? Should we be going? I know.
So I have
going to be a can't hurt, but I mean,
we would love for you to be there. It's not required, and that's one of the logistical things I've challenged the town council to think about is when is there an interaction between any members of any of you in these boards and the town council after your interview of being appointed to whatever board or commission you serve on? And how can it be an advisory board if there's never any advice coming back to the town council about whatever policies you would like to see changed at the town? I've been working with Tim on the Economic Development Commission, and there are suggestions about our process, about our customer service training, about communications. And that's great going directly from the committee to staff, because I can carry that out. But what if it's a change in the ordinance to make it easier to get an itinerant vendor's permit, a food truck permit? That is a very burdensome, painfully exhausting, expensive ordeal for every food truck in the state, because they can't get a license for the year for the whole state. They have to go to every municipality and get a separate license for every day they want to operate. And that can be very costly and add up. And so should we look at changing our ordinances? That's a recommendation. And right now we do not have a tradition or a process for communicating that to the board. The simplest would be simply to, pass a resolution, write a memo, and say a letter from your commission to the council saying this is what we'd like to see happen. I think it's better for everyone if you can come and make that presentation in person and say, hey, we've been talking about this for the last 6 months, and this is really important. We think we need to pay more attention to the juvenile corrections program. And, there's a lot of service projects in our park and litter along our roads. Maybe we can do a cooperative thing or whatever it is. There's ways that we could facilitate that communication. So that is something they're thinking about, and hopefully we'll come up with some new process and a way of doing things.
You successfully saw right through my question. Hold on.
Ben, it seems like, Steve Glover, Human Services, it seems like Human Services getting bigger and bigger. Many people are going to the senior center, which is absolutely fabulous. Some days serving 70, 80 people. It's fabulous over there. This is not an ethics question or any of the stuff that you talked about. Unlike the people that are here, if they have an elder parent, come on down.
Absolutely.
Because the staff that we have kicks butt. And we need, I tell you, we need more people down there, you know, because I think they'd have a great time. Just ask, bring them down. We'll show them around.
Wonderful.
You know? That's-
Wonderful. You know, success breeds success. And your successful experience serving on these boards and commissions will convince other people to also serve. Your good stories and experiences will spread. I think this community could really benefit from a more positive vibes, more positive acknowledgments that there are actually some really good things happening here. There are a lot of loud voices of negativity, especially on social media, that
The ones that don't do anything.
that drown out the positive. But
Ones that don't do anything. You ask them to volunteer and they don't have time. Yeah, but they're not doing anything.
so, there's the old adage that it's the same 10 people that get everything done, whether it's at church or Boy Scouts or library or wherever you're at. There are the doers.
5 of us in the community.
There you go. And you hold it together. You're making the difference.
I have a question.
Yes.
We picked flowers out of the community garden last week and I brought them over to the town hall. Did I get in trouble with that?
No, not at all. I don't know. What was your motive? Again, not an interested party, not a value that was excessive.
No,
And
it's just that I was
you know,
afraid the-
in California, their ethics laws were very specific. And, when the holidays rolled around and they're bringing these $100 fruit baskets and this and that or the other, the mayor would always just put it out in the open for everyone to enjoy, including the public, because it would be out at the front desk. So it's a gift to the community is not a gift to you. A gift to a group is not the same as a gift to sway the vote of an elected official.
I was just thinking about that.
All right.
I guess I'll just kind of echo maybe Steve's comment, like Steve's comment saying, hey, helping student services, we're having a great job. We want more people to come there. I think, right, there's all these volunteers in the town. How do we work together, or where do we have common interests across boards, across committees, right? We have historical pieces that are on our land. We have hiking trails that people can come and use, planning, whatever. How do all of us volunteers, those who volunteer and do the work to make the town better, work together?
That's because the town can't afford us. That's why we have to volunteer.
Well, that's absolutely true. You're priceless.
Think about how your community might interface with someone else and think about how we can all work together. And I know you guys have all been doing this for much longer. You're dancing together and everything else. Maybe I'm repeating things we already had. But
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Are you saying we're old?
no. That's a good question. Experience.
So I think this is a great first step because, to my knowledge, this hasn't been done before or in a very, very long time. And so we're bringing everyone together and setting expectations and how the town is going to move forward with this council, with me as the manager, you and the staff. And so hopefully this is not an isolated conversation, but one of many that we'll continue to have as we improve our communication amongst ourselves. I know some of the council members have said it would be really great to have a communications person on staff, someone to help write newsletter articles and facilitate these things. And that would be really nice. In this budget environment, it's a tall order and a lot to ask for because there isn't an immediate return on that investment, service delivery kind of a thing that the taxpayer can appreciate. Although every taxpayer wants to know why they didn't hear about whatever development, turbines issue, potholes, or the fact that their trash was going to be delayed a couple days. So communications is really important, except for when you don't need it and until just after you needed it. And so looking at all these things, how can we kind of squeeze more value out of the organization? I do have some ideas about how to get to that. I think I've done pretty well in my career with communications, but my time is limited. I can only be stretched so far. And so we're doing this, we're doing what we can, but we do have this vision for the future of how we can make it an even better community. So, yes.
I understand when you say people, there's always somebody negative
I run the community garden across the street. And last year, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, when we were putting the water system that was donated very nicely to us from two brothers out in California. And my husband and I were there on a Friday night, and they were having the music was playing next door. A guy from the town, I have no idea who it is, came over and told me that it was disgusting that I was getting time and a half for and working on a Friday night just so that I could listen to the music while I was doing my work. And one of the guys that worked for the town, who's now retired, was there. And he turned around and he said to the guy, yeah, time and a half for nothing is nothing. And the guy looked at him like he had two heads and he said, do I have to repeat myself? She doesn't get paid. The guy was embarrassed to walk away.
Good.
See, but see these people.
There's a level of incivility that is not unique to here. It's everywhere. I think my biggest complaints over a cold drink with anyone that'll listen is just how apathetic and disconnected people are from community, not just their town, but their schools, their organizations, even their own families. People are just getting so disconnected in this age of super hyper connected media. The connections are somehow losing their cohesion and their importance. And I think it's what you do that brings it back together and gives hope. And hopefully we can get more of that coming. So I'm going to cut it off here tonight. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards and in future coming days and weeks, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.